Time is running out if we hope to have any success in tackling climate change. That's the message from growing numbers of scientists around the globe. Back in early November, 11,000 scientists warned of untold suffering from the changing climate. Just this week, another group of researchers warned the melting of ice sheets in the Arctic and Antarctic may have already reached a critical tipping point. And the European Parliament yesterday declared a climate emergency. So just how far gone are we? Blair Feltmate runs the Intact Centre on Climate Adaptation at the University of Waterloo. He joins me today from Toronto. Blair Feltmate, we've had some pretty alarming pronouncements on climate change over the past few weeks. From your vantage point, how far gone are we?
Well, warming is happening globally. It has happened, is happening, will continue to happen. This is driven by elevated levels of CO2 in the atmosphere, and we are now seeing the expression of extreme weather risk as a result of the warming, primarily in the form of flooding. That's the number one cost to the country, and the damage that's being realized as a result of this whole equation is getting worse every year.
So are we at a point of no return?
We're at a point that unless we embraced three things very, very rapidly to turn climate change around, we're at the point of no return. One, we need to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions on scale very rapidly. Number two, we need to learn to adapt to the extreme weather risk that's on the ground today, and that which is going to get more challenging in the future. And number three, we have to embrace carbon capture and sequestration to take carbon out of the atmosphere and store it safely in depositories in the Earth's crust or somewhere else safe. And if we don't do those three things very rapidly, we're pretty much at the point of no return.
Let's talk about our priorities here in New Brunswick. If we hope to avoid a full-on climate crisis, what steps do we need to take here?
Top priority, in my opinion, for New Brunswick is to address flood risk. There's a lot you can do at the community level to mitigate flood risk using berms, diversion channels, holding ponds, cisterns, putting these things in place in areas of high flood risk potential so that you're not putting hundreds of thousands of sandbags out all at the last minute. And then with individual homeowners, there's much they can do around the outside of their property and in the basement itself to lower their chances of ending up with a flooded basement.
But even if we do everything right, we still run a substantial risk that the rest of the world could screw this up and we'll still suffer for it, right?
That is correct. And right now, the best predictions are taking into account carbon pricing and collective efforts to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions on a global scale. That by 2040, the carbon footprint globally will be about 12 to 15% greater or worse than it is today, period.
And what will the impact of that be?
Bigger storms, more frequently, and greater duration.
That's a frightening future you paint.
Yes, but we're seeing it manifest in real time right now. Now we're actually seeing the more frequent flooding. We're seeing more fires, particularly in Western Canada. So we're seeing climate change happen in real time right now as consistent with the warnings of the past. And it can pretty much guarantee for the foreseeable future that challenges are going to get greater.
That's part of my conversation with Blair Feltmate, the head of the Intact Centre for Climate Adaptation at Waterloo University.